All right, so tonight we are working on importing, organizing, and all those little tricks related to getting photos into Lightroom so that we can work on them. We have some questions tonight from people, and the plan is to go through some of these steps, the basics of getting your photos into Lightroom, and then just work from there on whatever people want to work on. So let's kick it off with how to import. I've got on my little screencast here, I've got a import button, and I'm going to click that, and hopefully, yeah, that launches the overlay so you can see it. Some of the things to look at, we've got right up here at the top. The first things you have to think about is, do we want to copy it, move it, or add it? For now, we're going to start with copy. And so this would be like if you're putting in your camera's SD card, you're going to copy the photos from that card to a location on your computer. That location, or the source that we're going to copy from, over here on the left is where you select that source. And usually that's going to be your camera card. Tonight I'm actually pulling it from a space on my hard drive. And so I'm going to click on that. When you click on that, you get that grid view of all the photos that you can import from that source. If you have already imported some of these photos and you have this don't import suspected duplicates checked, then it might show up gray, which means that it's already on there and you don't want to copy it again. There are tons and tons and tons of options and things that you can do to these photos on import. So rather than try to go through them all one by one, I just want to touch on a couple of the important ones, and then we might come back to some of the others if questions come up on them. So number one, we said the don't import suspected duplicates. That's a really handy feature so you don't get the same photos from your card over and over if you're not in the habit of deleting your card each time you import it. This right here is a really handy one, make a second copy to. So you can tell Lightroom when you click on this to copy it to your hard drive, but also make a second copy to a different location. And if you're the type of person who is good about backing up your photos, then that's a really, really useful tool. In my case, I have an external hard drive that if I'm shooting something important, say it's wedding photos or something I'm getting paid for and don't have the option to go reshoot it, I will use this to go ahead and make that immediate backup of my files. And then you can use this pull down over here to tell it where you're going to actually do that backup to. Right here in file renaming, this is kind of an important one. If you are, again, if you have your camera set up to where that it does not use a sequential number, and remember the last file name you used, like I'm sure you've seen cameras that are set up to always start at IMG001, right? Every time you clean off the card, if it starts at IMG001, well, it will overwrite that file, or there's the potential to. So you can use this rename file to create some kind of naming scheme that will, even if you're using those duplicate names, it will hopefully make them unique. And what I recommend and what I use is to use the date/file name pull down. There's a lot of different things you can use, but that's the one that has served me very, very well. Destination, of course, is important. And what I recommend is storing them all in a single upper folder, whether it's your My Pictures folder or some specific folder, and then have it organized by date. There's different things you can change this pull down to, but if you organize it by date, and then you can select the date format, what you will end up with is a bunch of folders you can see down below here, and each one of these is a dated folder that contain photos taken on that date. Let's see. So that's the settings for the files and where it's going over here. And then right here in the middle, of course, you just check the ones that you want to have. You can uncheck them all, you can check them all, you can check some. If you want to look at them in full size and flip through them and check and uncheck, that's one approach. There's many, many different ways to use these tools to fit your own workflow. But once we have them all checked, or the ones that we want, we have these things set up here. And then it's just a matter of importing. Now, in this case, I don't want to copy them because they already live on my hard drive. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell them to add to my hard drive. And of course, when I add, it gets rid of all the things about where do you want to move the files and how do you want to rename them, because they're already on the disk. Okay, so importing, and here they come. All right, so now all those files are in my Lightroom catalog and they are ready to be organized, sorted, chosen from, worked on. So any questions so far about the things we saw on that import screen?
I have one. So
Okay.
I actually had a couple, but I forgot a couple of them already.
Okay.
So when you say you have just one folder, like My Pictures or whatever, is that the same for your catalog? You use just one catalog?
I typically, yes. There are plenty of reasons to use multiple catalogs for people. My workflow doesn't really need multiple catalogs, but some might. And so I don't want to tell you like this is the way you should do it, because there's lots and lots of different ways to do it.
Well, so if you do it in one catalog, then when you do a keyword search, it searches the whole catalog. But if you set it up with multiple catalogs, then the keyword search only works in the catalog you're in?
As far as I understand it, yes. There may be tools that allow you to search across multiple ones, but catalog is almost like different instances of Lightroom, different groupings. So the changes don't take place across catalogs. It's sort of a good way if you were, maybe you're a professional photographer by day and a hobby photographer by night. It's a way to keep those separate so clients aren't seeing the stuff you're working on at night and vice versa.
Okay. So far, so good.
Okay. Um, then let me cancel this, and we'll move on to sort of the next step, which is we've got them imported, but they're not really, we don't really have them sorted, organized necessarily like we want them. We're not quite ready to work on them. So a few of the different things that we can do. Number one, we see in the catalog selection that it's real easy to get to them. They show up in the previous import right here. So if we somehow got into a different folder and you said, whoops, I want to go back to the things I just imported, well, you can click that and it jumps right back. So now let's see what we can do about picking out the good photos. And a lot of times, like for example, these house pictures, I haven't gone through them yet. I haven't edited them at all yet, and I need to sort of cull them down to send them the best 10 or 15 shots of the house. So there's a few different tools that I'll be able to use for that. Number one, we can just double click on one to bring it up full size, and you can't see it on screen, but if I use my left and right arrows, I can sort of toggle through pictures. And so
I have a question. So
yes.
Once you hit import and they come in, then does it automatically take you to this library module that you're in?
Yes, it would have been right here after import. So we're in library, previous import is highlighted, and now we're ready to go through these. And so we can use these as an example. They're obviously not all the same subject, but we can use these sorting and picking tools. So you see these flags in the top left of the grids. They're not selected. Now this is my way that I do it. There's lots of correct ways to sort and organize, but this is what I use. I go through, and any of the photos that I think are good, or at least not bad, I will flag them. You can either click on them, just click on the little flag, or you can, while they're highlighted, you can hit the P button, hit the P key, and that will flag it for you. If you decide, oh wait, I didn't want that one flagged, you could hit U to remove the flag. The other thing that's handy is you can hit X to reject something. You say, oh, you know what, this just isn't a good photo at all. X.
Where's the X?
I hit the X key.
Okay.
On your keyboard?
Yes. Yeah, on the keyboard. So X, and you can see that little label came up that says set as rejected.
Okay.
Now, I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts, and if you're not quite there yet where you can't memorize them yet, well, you can go up here and you can right-click on the flag, and then you see the 3 selections that you can put on there. Right? So you can right-click and then click on one of those. So I'll go and I'll do a shoot, and I'll come back and I'll quickly run through them, and I'll set all the flags of the photos that I really like, that I want to do something with now. And then anything that was, say, just out of focus or just a terrible photo I'm never going to do anything with, they might get the rejection flag. And so that's sort of the first pass, is I can quickly go through. All right, so yeah, here we've got some of the photos I like. And now, if I just want to see what I did today that I liked, up here in this top, see this attributes? You click that, that brings up this. And then I want to sort by flags that I picked. So by turning that on, then it only shows me these 9 photos that I put a flag on. And that will allow me to just sort of isolate my focus and work on these down in the film strip here, so I can jump back and forth to them without getting rid of any of the others. And I haven't done anything special like set them aside, they're just still in there. If I want to see everything, I just unclick that filter. If I wanted to see the ones that I deleted, well, then I can click on those and I can say, all right, these are just terrible, and I'm going to select them both and hit the delete key, or you could right click and remove photos.
Right click where?
Just on one of the images when you have it selected.
Okay.
And then it will say, like, do you want to delete them from the disk completely, like off of your computer, or do you just want to remove them from Lightroom? So that's a decision you can make there. I'm going to say delete these from disk because I just don't want them in my life at all. And so now those are gone. And now my photos have been cleaned up of all the ones that were just completely out of focus or no good, because that's something that almost all of us photographers need to work on anyway, is deleting our bad shots. There's no reason for bad photos to sit around on your computer.
But it takes so long.
Well, not in Lightroom.
So many of them.
Lightroom, yeah, you can just quickly click
Yeah.
through these and X them out and get rid of them, and they're gone. And there's even some shorter shortcuts when you get into using that, some hotkeys that you will be able to delete photos very quickly. So yeah, get used to those tools. The other thing that so I've seen people use, well, I don't get much use out of it, but some people like to use this setting, is a star rating. So when we're going through here, I'm going back to none, so we're not looking at filters. You could click 1 through 5 on these photos as you're going through it. So maybe that's a 3-star photo, and this is a 4-star, and that's a 5-star, and that's a 2, and that's a 3. And you can go through and just give them little starred ratings. And then you could sort by show me all the photos that are better than a 2-star, or maybe better than a 3-star. You know what? Just show me my 5-star photos. And so if you are the type of person who likes that star setup, then you can make that work for you too. Alright, so flagging and rating. The other really neat tool that I don't see used very often, but it's very handy, are the survey tool and the compare tool. Let's see. I'm going to switch just because it's a little easier to see when when we're using something that really makes sense. So here are trying to shoot this person's kitchen and trying to get just the right angle of something that looks very similar and make sure the dish towels are hidden and all that stuff. So we need to pick the best photo of these four. So how are we going to do that? Well, we could either try to look at these thumbnails, or we could go through them one at a time, or we can highlight them and then come down here and click on the survey view. And so now you see all four photos right here together. And then you can start saying, well, you know, I don't quite like how that we just have the half of a microwave here, so I'm going to get rid of that one. And I don't quite like how the fridge shadow is sort of protruding there. So between these two, you know, I think maybe I like it better with the lights in here. And so boom, you have selected down to this one. I hit the P key because this is the one I like. And then we would move on to the next series, the next view. And you can keep on
Point
using
to the
that.
icon at the bottom, which is the survey tool. Is it the one that's highlighted down there?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's,
thank you.
yep. And then, so that is a really, really good tool for when you have many of the same photo, the same angle or same shot. Maybe it's a portrait and you're trying to find exactly the right facial expression, but it just lets you eliminate down to the ones you want. Another interesting one is, say you're trying to pick the best photo of a group. So it could be like that one before, where we're trying to pick for the same kitchen, but maybe we're trying to pick just the best uh, of a series. And so I'm going to use the compare view right next to it. So here you're shown two photos next to each other. And you can say, well, just which one do I like better? Well, maybe I like this one, so I'm going to close that one.
Where's the
Well,
compare view?
the compare view was right
Oh,
next to the survey view.
X and Y. Got that.
And then it's just a matter, it's almost like a vote, you know, a versus. You've got this one versus this one. Which one do you like better? Well, I like that one better. Well, I still like this one better. I still like this one better. And you cycle through until you have found, well, all right, I kind of like this one better. And you eventually get to where this is the winner. You know, you're left with just that one and then the other. So it's a way to compare them one at a time, but drill down through a group of photos.
You can do that no matter what your view, like if you're doing all your 2 stars, then you can get it down to 1 2-star. Or if you're doing all of your flags or whatever, no
Right.
matter what group you're looking at, then you can use that.
Yes, and you can have the filters on or off. So, I mean, if you wanted to use the flag, just get, let's see, let me turn that rating system off. Okay, so here's just the flagged ones. So that gets you drilled down to just the ones you really like. Then you can start applying these tools on top of that, on top of the filtered things.
Right, so that's the survey.
Right, that was the survey. Then there's your compare view. And then the other thing, you can sort right here. And there's a pull down where you can change lots of things. You can change it, or you can sort them by their capture time. You can sort them by which one was edited most recently. You could sort them by just tons and tons of things. One of the ways you can sort is just by your own custom order. So if you want to, oops, have to go select them like down in here. If you are in one of these areas, you can just move photos around. And a lot of times if I have to pick like 10 photos for a show or something, I will bring them all into this screen and I'll just move my favorite ones up to the top and my least favorite ones down to the bottom, and then whatever the top 10 are, those are the ones I've picked.
How did you move that?
Just click and drag, put it where you want it. It's like moving an icon around on your desktop. All right, so any questions on the sort of basic sorting tools here?
I have one. So
Okay.
is there a way to stack them at this point? Say I've taken a bunch of HDR, trios,
Hmm.
and instead of, spreading them out, is there a way to stack them with the middle exposure on top so that later I can come back and know that, yeah, those are stacked and I can play with the HDR?
Yes, so I don't have anything like that that's an actual HDR example, so we're just going to make this up here. We're going to say, okay, these are all the living room. So I'm going to see how I've selected all of the ones from the living room?
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to right click, go to stacking, and I'm going to group onto stack. And now you see that this stack has 7 in them. And if you click that label, that expands and contracts the stack. And then if you said, all right, this is the one I want on top, you can drag that and put it in the first position.
Okay. So run through that again because I was trying to write. So you
Okay.
write, you pick them out.
So here are the 3 from the bathroom.
Okay. So you right click.
Yeah, and you can right click on any of those, go down here to stacking,
Okay.
and then you can group into stack.
Okay.
And now it has contracted them. You can expand them this way. And if you said, all right, this is the one that I want to be the top, then you just move it over and you put it on top of the stack. Now Lightroom has, it wouldn't work for here because they weren't shot fast enough together, but in your example of HDR, where you're shooting click, 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 rapid fire.
Right.
So if you right click, go into stacking, and you see this option that says auto stack by capture time,
Yeah.
that is smart enough to go through and look for the things that were almost clearly shot bracketed, and it will automatically stack those together for you.
Can you do that for your whole import? Say I took 15 or 20 HDR sets.
Yes, it should for whatever, like if you're clicked on just one folder, then it would look through that folder. If you went up here and you were clicked on to an entire, your entire catalog, whatever is selected in this grid view, when you right click on that and stack it, it will go through and try to stack those.
So if you have 50 photos, you just select them all and then right click and then down to auto stack by capture time?
Right, and with that, I don't think that you have to have them all selected either. I think that auto stack by time.
Okay.
Yeah, and it will bring this up to where that it will look at the time between them.
Okay.
Let me see. I wanted to test something there. Okay, 11. Yeah, and you can see it gives you a little report right here as you change the time between photos.
Right.
It'll say, okay, it's going to build 12 stacks and 32 are unstacked. And so you can move that slider until it kind of seems reasonable, what you expect it to be. Yeah, so that's your auto stacking.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so any questions on that before we move on into organizing? And so by organizing, because this is sort of organizing the grid, organizing the area that we're working with. Now let's talk about organizing these photos into how we're going to deal with them for the rest of their life in Lightroom. And one of the biggest things there, we're talking about collections. All right, so when you talk about putting like photos together, we're talking about using this collections panel right down here at the bottom. And so you can see this is where I've kind of grouped stuff up, like my real estate photos for people and articles I've written and trips here and there. Or if you're the type of person who's shooting flowers or trying to catalog your shoots by subject, these collections, that's where you're going to do that. So we can go through and look and see if any of these kind of make sense. So we could create a collection called landscapes. And so right down here, we're going to create this, create collection, and I'm going to call it, just so I can find it later, I'm going to call it test landscapes. And you have a bunch of different options that you can do things down here with as well, but for now we're just going to create test landscapes. And then if we look here in the collections, boom, there it is. And of course there's nothing in there because we haven't put anything in there. So one thing you can do is go up here and you can say, all right, I like this. This is a landscape. You can click it and you can just drag it right down here and put it in.
Hmm.
Although that's sort of the slow way to do it. All right, so what I want to do, I want to right click and I want to click on set as target collection. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and when you do that, this little plus appears and now this is sort of kind of bolded out from the rest of them. So now, when you click on something, you have the option of right-clicking and add to target collection. So, boom, jumps right in there. So now we have those two in that test landscape. And that gets really handy when you have a bunch of scrolling, when you have lots of folders and lots of things to do, that you don't have to continuously scroll down. You can go back here and then click add to target collection. You don't have to do these drag and drops. And if you're a fan of using keyboard shortcuts like I am, you could, we'll go through here and find another. You can hit B, and B will drop into the target collection. Or you see these little dot right here on the top right. You click that, and it will drop it into the target collection. So lots of different ways to do it, but it's all just about, like we could select a bunch of them all at once and drag them into our collection. So that's sort of the creating collections. Any questions on collections?
John, are they still in the other folder?
Yes. So what you need to think about when it comes to collections is that with collections, it's all virtual. You're not actually moving any files around. A collection is just a made-up grouping of your photos. So you could have the same photo in lots of different collections, because I might have a collection for animals, which this photo right here is both a landscape and an animal photo. Right? And it's also a trip to Washington, so it could be in 5 or 10 different collections, but only in one location on your hard drive. All right. So then there's lots and lots of different things that you can do with collections that we won't get into right now because we get way into complicated stuff. But for example, you could right-click, you could build a collection, you can right-click on it and then export that as a catalog. And so you're creating your own smaller catalog that maybe you're going to send off to work on in another location, or to one of your photographer friends, or for any, maybe you're just trying to take your giant catalog and break it into smaller catalogs. Lots of different reasons, but just one of the many, many things that you can do with that.
Now, can I do the same thing with keywording on the photos as create, like, flower?
Yes. So with keywording, that's over here on the other side of the page. With keywording, you could go in and right here, like this one, it was actually keyworded, Deer Mountains Olympic National Park. And it has a bunch of tools here that we won't get into, but like your common keywords, and you can build lists of keywords that you commonly use to make it quicker and easier to put in there.
Would that be almost like a collection as well? Or?
No, it wouldn't be a collection. It's more a way of searching later, or when you upload them to, like if you put them on Flickr or 500 Pics or wherever you use, the keywords here should go with it. So then the question of how do you find these photos later? So we've got them organized in collections. We have them stored by date on our hard drive. Maybe you are using keywords. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I certainly don't try to keyword every single photo I've taken, but when it's convenient, I'll keyword them. So if you want to go back later in life and find a photo, we're going to go back here. We're in library, and right up here we'll be doing this click on by attribute. We can click on, I'm going to unclick that flag just so that all these filters are off. We can go to text, and then right here you can type in text to find that. So maybe I want to find, what did I say that was? It was, well, here's Lighthouse. So boom, there's the one that's keyworded Lighthouse. Or maybe Waterfall. I don't know if that's going to be in there or not, because I didn't keyword that one. But if we increase this to a much bigger sample size, so this is my entire catalog with 101,000 photos in it. So if I go up here to text and I search for night, that's going to start pulling out all the photos, and it will take a while to build these previews back again. But that's going to start pulling out all the photos that are keyworded as night. So it's, if you spend the time to keyword your photos, then yeah, you'll be able to go back later and use search tools like that. But the other thing you can do with this search is not just for keywords, but let's say that somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I found this photo of yours online. I really want to use it in a magazine. Can you please get it to me? Can I get a full-size copy of this? And you say, yeah, you know, what do you know about this photo? And, well, a lot of times they'll just have the file name. So if we're going to cheat here and use one that's right in front of me, they said, well, it's DSC 2575. So I'd start typing in here DSC 2575. And there it is. All right. Or they say, you know what, I don't know. I saw it online. I saw it on some website, and I could tell that it was on some trip. And it was, so we're just going to keep using this one as an example. It was the moon over a pier somewhere. And you say, oh yeah, that was the, I was down the Chesapeake Bay. And I'm sort of scratching my head, okay, when was that? That was in, I know it was sometime in 2014. So I'm going to use my metadata here. And I start clicking, well, let's see. I know it was in, all right, come on down. I know it was in 2014, and I'm pretty sure it was in June. And there you go. Found it. Or you could, maybe you don't know. You say, gosh, I don't know, but I know that I shot that with my, I know I shot that with my infrared camera. And so, boom, here's just all the photos that were taken with my infrared camera. And I know I was using my 105. And so it's now sorted it down to just those 111 photos taken with my infrared camera with my 105 lens. And then there's lots of other things we could do. If we reset these and we say, you know what, I don't even remember the camera and the lens. All right, so now it's updating. I remember that it was definitely in the U.S. It was that trip to Virginia where we went down to Deltaville. And okay, yeah, we start finding it here because I've geotagged these photos.
Gosh.
So that's a camera setting, geotagging?
Well, geotagging would do that with the map feature here. It could also be a camera setting thing if your camera has a built-in GPS. Or let's say that this wasn't exactly the photo. You can say, okay, well it's kind of it, but it wasn't exactly this photo, but it was that same night. So you can right-click on that image, and then up here near the top, just go to Folder and Library. So if I click that, and it takes me to just that folder, and inside that folder, since I store my shots by date, these are all the photos that I shot that night. And say, oh, okay, it was this one that they were talking about, slightly more purple than this one. So that's another way to find your photos if you're sort of fuzzy on date or whatnot. Just ways to drill down using Lightroom tools up here. And lots of pull downs and filters and things to change. So yeah, that's searching. And then finally, I think there was a question about, okay, can we move these things around, like on our hard drive using Lightroom? And the answer is yes. Where you get into trouble, where people get into trouble with Lightroom is when they start messing with the pictures outside of Lightroom. When they go into their Windows Explorer or just the interface where you are working on files outside of Lightroom and move them around. When you do that, Lightroom loses track, and it'll just give you big question marks. But you can move them right here within, like dragging from one folder to another. Or in my case, I have lots of different hard drives. So I've got my C drive, which is the solid state fast drive where I do my editing. So any photos that I take and want to work with, they'll be on this drive. But eventually, I want to move them into big storage, where they're just going to sit and hang out. So in order to do that, I can go up here and I can say, all right, here's a bunch of photos that are ready to move. I click, and I'm just going to drag it and scroll down here and drop it into big storage. It's going to say this will cause all the files to be moved. Are you sure you want to? And I hit yes, and then it goes to work moving those. And that'll slowly burn through all that. You can see the taskbar up here doing its thing in the background. And those will be physically moved on disk.
So they're not copied to another disk, they're actually physically moved. So if you want to find that, then you have to remember where you put it?
Yes, if you want to find it physically on disk. Now, finding them in the Lightroom catalog is still just as easy. I could go and I could search by date or file name, or the collections all still work. It's just that I took this folder and I moved it from my C drive down to my S drive.
So under Lightroom, it's still listed under a file name. It's still in that same spot in Lightroom.
Well, it's so under the folders, because this is the physical disk we're talking about. It's no longer on the C drive. It's down here on my S drive, which is my big storage drive. But as far as being in my collections, that has not changed.
Okay.
And all the file names and the links and all that stuff have not changed. The keywords have not changed.
Oh, here, I'll drop it. So, I'm having something on it.
All right, and so I think those are kind of the common things I wanted to cover tonight, as far as I want to make sure we cover. So now if you have any questions on those or questions about other stuff you want to get into, I'd say let's move on with that.
On the right side, you know, when you're doing your tagging, it's got the histogram and the keywording. What else is over there?
So when you're in this library view, you've got the quick develop panel for one, and that is
something for the next class, right?
Well, maybe. I mean, I don't get a lot of use out of it, but you might if you're just trying to do quick proofs. Like these are all shot in RAW here, so they have nothing done to them. I could quickly auto-tone them, which is sort of like having shooting JPEG in camera. Right. It's just a quick way to do that. So if I want to throw a quick auto-tone on them before I go through it, this is a good chance to do it. or if I've built presets because I always do the same thing on photos when I import them, this is a way to do that. Or I can apply white balance. All these just quick changes. Let's see, we've gone through the keywording, lots of interesting keyword stuff. If you are big into keywording, there are some good tools here, but a lot of it is not really worth it for most of us at the level we shoot. Let's see, keyword list, another keyword tool. Down here, metadata stuff. Kind of interesting. You can change your file name directly using this. You can see where it's stored. You can add titles. So, like when you add photos to Flickr 500 pics, the titles that they get in the descriptions, you could put those right into the EXIF of the image here. All the ratings and various labels and sorting things you can do. You can see your EXIF data. You can see the exposure settings and the lenses and things, your GPS, the location that it shows. And then if you, again, are using one of these managers to upload to 500 pics or Flickr, it will try to keep up with the comments that people leave on them and allow you to see them in here as well.
So I have a real specific question because I imported all of my photos into Lightroom.
Okay.
And I have been using a separate hard drive to put my photos on. I'm getting a bunch of feedback. How do I fix that?
All right. Sorry, your audio was breaking up there a little bit.
Yeah,
A
I'm
lot of feedback.
echoing off everybody, I think. So, so all my photos are on a separate hard drive. Then I would download them because I didn't know how to do Lightroom. I would download them through Bridge and put them into folders on this hard drive. And then at some point I put them all on Lightroom, and then I've been adding them as I came along. But I got behind, and so I clicked some of my folders. I put a star in front of them on the separate hard drive. So I know I could add. So I know I needed to add them. So if I add them to Lightroom with that star as part of the file name, which I don't want to stay there, I can go to metadata and change the name.
Yes, you should be able to change it there, or if you're talking about the. I haven't done this, so I'm kind of guessing, but yeah, if you right-click on a folder over here, you can rename it.
Okay.
And
as
that
long
will
as I
rename
do it
it.
in Lightroom, I'm good.
Yes, because it will rename it on the disk and in Lightroom.
Okay, because I started to put them up at the top, so I knew how many I needed to do. But once they're in there, I want them to go into the regular order of things and not just be at the top.
Right.
So, okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions on this topic or any other?
I just need to try and see where I'm going to get stuck now.
In my folders,
Mm-hmm.
instead of, well, I have the dates on mine, but I also have right-clicked and renamed and put a dash out beside the date and actually said like water drops or freeze motion.
Okay.
Just so I could locate.
And that's okay. One of the problems that I ran into when I was trying to figure out how I was going to organize my files is if you are having very specific shoots like that, then it works. But once you start doing shoots that have multiple subjects or just walking around downtown, or it's hard to come up with a name for a folder that makes sense.
Okay.
So eventually you just get to where the only thing that really is a common factor that always makes sense is the date it was shot on, because that covers all the subjects.
We have the date also.
The date's on there.
Yeah, and so that's fine. I would say as long as you have the date, that's the most important. If you want to add something on top of it, then that's not going to hurt anything.
I've even deleted all of my photos from 2013 because they were so bad.
Been there, done that.
Well, save enough to remember where you came from.
12 for 2014, so. Okay.
When you hit that X key, does it delete the photo or just
No, all it does is
or
mark it
just or
in the
just reject it?
in the same way that when you hit P or flag it, all it does is turn this flag on.
It just marks it.
If you reject it, all it does is mark it with a flag.
Okay.
And that way you can decide later if you want to do something with your rejected photos or just leave them.
I mean, are they
It
just
just gives you a way to sort out the things you want to see.
they're just sitting there taking up space, though, aren't they?
Yeah, that is true.
So get rid of them. Allow you to get rid of them.
But you can go back and delete it also, right? And
Yeah,
just
you sure
totally
can.
remove it?
Yep. Yeah, but it's again with Lightroom, it's designed for almost anybody's workflow to be able to work inside Lightroom. So for most of us, we just want to delete the rejected photos, but there's some jobs out there where uh, maybe this isn't a photo that's ever going to see the light of day, so you reject it, but you don't want to delete it because you may go back later and find out that a person of importance later in life was in that photo. Yeah, there are lots of interesting stories that you can read with like AP photographers going back and finding $1 million photo they didn't even know they had when somebody goes out and does something silly. All right. Well, I mean that's sort of the
Wow.
importing and organizing in a nutshell there.
Well, it was wonderful instruction. I picked up a lot.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it.
I'm looking forward to about 3 rainy days in a row.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except this weekend, right?
Still looking for the snow days.
But yeah, with this stuff, and I seem to say this every time, but I really want people to get in the right mentality for using Lightroom. Go through looking for the options of things you can do to your photos. Maybe for learning, but really what you want to do is you want to be looking for the idea of what is it that I want to do with my photos. What do I want to do, and then go look at Lightroom because it will have those options for you. All right. Well.
So is there a way? Have you thought about? So now we're all going to go play with our stuff.
Yep.
And then do we get back together with specific questions, or email you with questions, or what format are you thinking?
Well, I would do both. I would certainly email me the questions or send them to me as you think about them, and I'll start compiling them. And if we see that, all right, we're getting a lot of people questioning or asking questions about some specific feature in importing or some specific thing in developing, that'll sort of guide us on where we want to go next. As far as the idea I have for us getting together is on some semi-regular basis, whether it's Tuesdays work for everybody or Thursdays, or we'll just figure it out as we go. And we'll get together for 45 minutes, half an hour like this, try to touch on those common questions I'm getting, and then hopefully as we all get a little better with them, we'll actually sit around and work on photos for 15, 20 minutes so we can sort of answer questions in real time. And you guys can share your screens so everybody else can see them if they want to, or if you have questions on specifically what should I do to this photo or how do I use this slider.
So is there a way to, if you're showing your screen, John, and we all share our screens, is there a way to see our own screen?
Yes. So if
and somebody else's screen at the same time, like a split screen thing?
Well, I guess that would be up to your computer. You should be able to resize your screen to match, but I think probably the easiest way is two screens, two monitors, or external monitor on your laptop, so that you're using Lightroom on one side and watching the Google Hangout on the other.
Okay. But if you do that, then everybody else can't see your Lightroom screen.
Oh, no, you should, because just like well, you can't see what I'm doing here, but on one screen I have Lightroom, on the other screen I have Google, and I'm sharing my Lightroom screen through Google.
But
so,
you had those screens already hooked together, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there is that.
But now the quick answer to the question is yes, that's very possible for you to share your screen while watching others.
Okay. I don't know about everybody else, but I do really well if I have a specific assignment,
Okay.
like download or upload or import some photos and, do most of the things you talked about and type of thing.
All
So,
right. Well, yeah, I don't really have one for what we talked about tonight, but I will keep that in mind for the future stuff because hopefully we'll get into more specific editing work and tool work and,
right,
okay, we're going to work on just the adjustment brush or just the tone curves or something tonight
right.
and have something for you there.
So if the way that we import and tag and name, if that works for us, keep it that way? Or?
That is exactly right. What you need to do is develop your own workflow. And I know when you start learning this, you have to sort of learn what workflow works for you. But if you set off to try to find all the things Lightroom will do and do all those things, you will just be overwhelmed.
As I was earlier.
Yeah. So just worry about, get your photos into Lightroom so you can use them. And then you'll eventually start saying, well, it would be really neat if I could do this, or it would save me a bunch of time if I could do that. But I wouldn't worry about those things too much until they become an issue for you.
Okay.
All right. Well, then I guess you guys go have fun with Lightroom, and hopefully this helped you a little bit tonight.
We'll see how many phone calls you get in the next hour.
And then we will. I'll send out some more messages and see when we can get together again and what you guys want to work on next.
All right, great. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.